Hello, and welcome to this eSchool News webcast. My name is Andrew Barber, and I will be acting as the moderator for today's presentation, which is sponsored by Amplify. It's titled, Why Alexandria City Public Schools Switched from Laptops to the Tablet-Based Amplify System. Before I introduce our three speakers, I want to take a few moments to highlight a couple of items. First, today's event will be recorded. In a couple of days, you will receive an email from us containing a link to the recorded event, and you'll also be able to download a PDF of the presentation. Second, I encourage you to ask questions at any time during the presentation. Don't feel as if you have to wait until the end. To ask a question, just type into the Q&A box on your console and hit the send button. I hope we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. And please don't use the chat box to ask questions of the presenters. They simply don't have time to monitor the chat thread. Instead, use chat to talk to one another or to contact me or the eSchool News team about any technical or other issues you might have. Now let's turn to today's speakers. Rachel Van Aken currently serves as the Regional Account Manager for Amplify, covering the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. She's been involved in educational technology for 7 years, prior to which she taught 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades in the Boston area, and before that, in London. Dr. Elizabeth Hoover is Chief Technology Officer at the Alexandria City Public Schools. She has spent her career at the intersection of technology and primary education with hands-on experience, both as a leader of technology initiatives and as a teacher. She received her PhD in instructional technology at George Mason University. Dan Foreman is a former Marine who now serves as Instructional Technology Coordinator for Alexandria City Public Schools, where he works to implement and coordinate hardware, software, and best instructional practices for the division. He has experience as a technology integration specialist for ACPS, and he also taught secondary English in both the DC and Alexandria City Public Schools. And now that you know something about who's behind the voices, let's get started. Welcome, Rachel. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Rachel, you're on mute right now. One moment while we get Rachel. There we go. Rachel, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me, Andrew?
Oh. Yes, welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. As Andrew said, my name is Rachel Van Aken, and I am very lucky today to have a great partner and a customer of ours, Alexandria City Public Schools, with us today. So a very special thank you to Elizabeth and Dan for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel.
Today I will be giving you a quick overview of the Amplify system, and then we'll hand it over to Elizabeth and Dan to discuss ACPS's program, the timeline and outcome of why they chose Amplify. They will also go through some details of their implementation, and of course we will spend some time answering your questions. So when we went to designing and building our system, we wanted to be sure we were delivering the whole solution when it comes to mobile learning, not just pieces of the puzzle, which is why you see we have 4 components here: the tablet, the instructional tools, the Amplify market, and support through phone, email, and our Amplify community. So we're going to dive into each of these components now. And, you know, when we look at the Amplify tablet, the actual hardware, our device has been built for K-12 from the inside out. We partnered with Intel Education to develop our purpose-built K-12 device. And, you know, we knew that if we were going to put a device in the hands of children, it better be rugged. Kids will be kids, and our device needed to withstand the sometimes rough K-12 environment. The durable device features rubber bumpers and splash resistance, so it can withstand the inevitable drops and spills of student life. The screen is made of Corning Gorilla Glass, which provides break and scratch resistance. The tablet also runs on the Android operating system and with Intel's superfast 2.0 gigahertz dual-core Atom processor. When it comes to the battery life, we tested the device in real classroom conditions to ensure that the devices can make it through the typical school day. So the tablet has 9+ hours of battery life. The tablet's MIMO technology allows for ultra-fast Wi-Fi and addresses the challenges of connectivity in many classrooms. For districts that are looking for added protection, we offer a case designed expressly for K-12 that exceeds military drop standards. We also offer a wired keyboard by Belkin for easy text entry and compatibility for standardized testing. As we built the Amplify system, we knew that the software needed to make a difference in the classroom for the teacher and the student. So we've included personalized notebooks for each class, thanks to our integration with your student information system. With classroom management tools like App Blocker, Eyes on Teacher, and Classroom Monitor, teachers can ensure that students are staying focused and on track. Our real-time assessment tools like Discussion, Quick Poll, and Spot Check allow teachers to easily check for students' understanding on the fly. We've also built a robust assignment system workflow that allows students to submit assignments to teachers, which they then can comment on and return to a student to edit and resubmit. Our playlist builder tool lets teachers build digital lessons with content from their own collections or from the web and direct a playlist to an entire class, smaller groups, or even individual students for personalized instruction. Finally, with the quiz builder, teachers can create, review, and distribute assessments, which are automatically scored. Our instructional software is intuitive and helps teachers easily transition to a digital classroom. We went and built the only K-12 app store for teachers and for students. We call this the Amplify Market. With thousands of apps out there claiming to be educational, we wanted to give teachers and students and administrators an easy way to access apps that they know for sure offer educational value. The Amplify Market is highly curated and organized by subject area, making it easy and intuitive to navigate. With the Amplify Market, students are able to directly download high-quality apps like award-winning educational games and creation and collaboration tools. Teachers get useful pedagogical information that accompanies each app, helping them to integrate the app into classroom instruction. We've also partnered with Common Sense Media to provide expert educator ratings and reviews and standard and skill alignment. The Amplify Market includes free access to $55 worth of high-quality educational apps and games. We're committed to ensuring that our districts successfully deploy the Amplify system and to providing ongoing support to address any issues that arise. Our implementation team works hand in hand with districts to make sure the necessary infrastructure is in place prior to deployment. Customers can access our highly knowledgeable service center by email or phone 6 days a week. This includes access for parents and students. The tablet also has a support app, which allows users to report an issue directly from the tablet. Our online community is a place where other teachers can collaborate with other teachers and amplify staff on best practices, lesson plan ideas, etc. And finally, our mobile device management system has been purpose-built for K-12 and gives districts an easy way to manage their fleet of devices. I now want to hand it over to Elizabeth and Dan to talk about their transition from laptops to tablets.
Thank you, Rachel. Let's see. Thank you for having us today. We're excited to talk about Alexandria City Public Schools transition from our laptops to our tablets. But before I get started, I want to give you a little bit of background on ACPS. We are right across the river from Washington, D.C. We are a small school division compared to our surrounding larger ones like Fairfax County and Montgomery County, Maryland. We have a little over 14,000 students. With only 17 schools, we have one high school, which is T.C. Williams, which we will spend a lot of time talking about today. We are extremely diverse. You can see the demographics on the slide. We have close to 30% ELL learners, over 10% special ed. Last year, our farm was 59%. We believe when the new numbers come out later this year, we'll probably be over 60% free and reduced lunch. Over 120 countries of birth and over 100 native languages. We also have we have a large transient population, so our demographics are always changing. So what I'm going to talk about today is to give you a little bit of history of our one-to-one, our pilot with our Amplify Tablet system, and then the reasons that drove us to the decision for this transition, and we'll talk about some of our implementation details. So T.C. Williams, as I said, is our one high school, and there's a picture of it below. Some of you may be familiar with us from the movie Remember the Titans. But we started our one-to-one laptop program in 2003 with a pilot with our ninth graders. And there are several reasons that this happened. Number one, our superintendent and our school board had visited another county with a one-to-one and was very impressed and passionate about technology and instruction. There are two other factors that were happening at the same time. T.C. Williams was built in 1960, and it was going to be rebuilt for opening in 2000. And so when they were considering the infrastructure of the school, they were real estate in the school was valuable, and they were looking at ways to be more efficient with their space. And so they started talking about a one-to-one and ability to not put in so many computer labs in the school. And at the same time, our state was putting out Virginia State online test. And so we knew that we were going to need to test all of our students online. And so by moving to a one-to-one, we would be building that infrastructure in for our state testing. So there were several factors coming together that helped drive the decision for the division to invest so much money into a one-to-one program. So after the ninth grade, piloted in 2003, it was expanded to the rest of the high school in 2004. And we actually have two campuses. We have a ninth grade campus, and we have a campus for the 10th through 12th graders. So that made it a little bit easier to just pilot one grade level in one high school. The way we afforded this was we did a laptop lease, and we've done leasing over the years. Our first set of leases were 4-year leases. Actually, the ninth grade had a different model laptop than the other campus because of starting a year later. We learned very quickly that a 4-year lease was much too long. By the time the 4th year, the laptops were having a hard time meeting the performance standards for the performance that was really needed in the classroom by the students and the teachers. Our next lease, we did a 3-year lease, and that was much better. But then when we were in 2011 negotiating another lease, we decided to do a 2-year lease with an option to renew a 3rd year. So in 2012, 2013, we put out another request for proposals, and several things were happening at that time. Number one, our school board was wrestling with a budget, which everyone deals with, and they were looking at areas for efficiency. And technology is always looked at very closely when it comes to budget and savings. Also, we had just gotten back the proposed laptops, and We really, in ACPS, try to include our students in our decision-making, especially when it comes to laptops or devices that they're going to use. And from the selection of laptops that we had, the kids told us that none of them were really met their standards. And when I say that, it wasn't that they weren't powerful enough, but they were looking at it as far as the durability. Our students really understand how kids treat laptops. They recognize hinges, plastic hinges are going to be a problem. They're very critical consumers. And so the fact that we weren't really pleased with our selection and looking at the budget constraints, we decided to make it an opportunity. And so what we did was we decided to extend that 2-year lease to a 3rd year, which allowed us some savings to put some money aside to do a pilot for other types of devices. We had been so focused on making sure that our laptops met the standards for the state to make sure that they could all do their online tests. But it was, in some ways, it was kind of handcuffing our possibilities of what we could do in the classroom with instruction through the rest of the year. So last fall, we put together another request for proposals for different tablets. And once again, our students were a part of that selection process. And after looking at several different tablets, it was unanimous from the student's choice and the teacher and administrators on this committee that the Amplify tablets was the favored tablet. So we started that pilot in January, and it went through June. We had teachers self-select themselves with the students that they already taught in their class. And I'll go into a few more details about that in a moment. Later that year, which was actually last spring, we made the decision to move forward with the Amplify Tablet system. And in September, we provided all of our high school students their Amplify Tablet. So, you know, as we go through this presentation, remember our kids have only had the devices for about 6 weeks. And what we were also able to do, because of this pilot last year, we had over 400 tablets available to use elsewhere in the school division, and we decided to do an elementary pilot. We had several schools apply for that, and we actually are in the middle of distributing distributing tablets to the 5th graders at several of our schools. So, you know, before I go much further, whether you're looking at tablets or laptops or whatever you're doing in a one-to-one, there's certainly some essentials and that we had in place and we're already thinking about as this transition because of our experience. And one is durability of devices. We knew, and the students told us, and we knew from our own experience of how durable these devices had to be, because kids use them as umbrellas, as seat warmers sometimes. They're smushed in very large backpacks, and they really need to withstand the life of a teenager. You really need to have an easy device management system. You need to have a robust network to support the use. You need to make sure that you have embedded ongoing teacher-to-teacher professional development. You need to have student technical support, and you need to have curriculum and administrative support. So moving into this transition to the tablets, because of our experience, we knew that these things were either important or we had them already in place. So to talk a little bit more about that Amplify pilot, as I said earlier, we had 10 self-selected teachers, and they were from across the different grade levels. We wanted to make sure we had ELL students, ELL teachers, special ed students, and special ed teachers and students, cross-curricular input in this pilot. We actually ended up having over 400 students. What we wanted to do is to make sure that whichever teacher was selected, that all of the students that they taught throughout the day had a tablet, so that they did not have to change their lessons or change their strategies for kids with laptops and then change them for kids with tablets. Part of this pilot was our STEM team at our 9th grade center. So 100 of the kids were already in a collaborative team with 4 teachers that they work with every day. So that that was great to work with a small, close-knit group where the teachers and students are already collaborating frequently and giving a lot of feedback in their everyday instruction. We did student and teacher focus groups, surveys, and classroom observations. Students are, as I said earlier, are very critical consumers, and they will analyze devices and give you their input, and they love to do so. And so that was actually a lot of fun, and Amplify actually came down and participated in some of those focus groups so that they could get feedback themselves. We talked about things like classroom use, what was it like taking assessments on them, what was their outside of school use, could they do their online courses, their usability, and just general use in comparison to their laptops that they had. And from all of that, the majority of our students and teachers preferred the Amplify system over our current student laptop. So, when I talk about the reasons that really drove us to the decision, the things that bubbled up from our student focus groups and our teacher focus groups and from the support team are several reasons. And one is personalization. We just feel like with the Amplify Tablet system, there's a direct connection, a direct personalization for the students and the teachers with the tablets. When they turn on their Amplify Tablet, they have their student schedule right there. When they walk in class, that teacher is immediately connected to all of their students. The communication, the differentiation, the instruction, it can be completely personalized or grouped with small groups of students or full class. And you can do that with the laptops, and we'd had some success with that, but you just could not do it as easily, and the device was not as personal. It was not connected to that student's daily life in the same sort of way. Flexibility. When we looked at flexibility, we want a device that's flexible, that teachers can change direction in their units or their lesson plans and go to different resources and have them available easily. We had done some, with the laptops, we were able to push out packages and do some differentiated software for different groups of students and different courses, but it really wasn't easy, and it was not something that could be done quickly. There was more of a bureaucratic process. You had to have it put on the image, or create a package, and you could do it, but again, it just wasn't quickly done. So with tablets, the mobile device management in there allowed us to push out applications to be distributed to groups of students or the whole school within minutes. And what we've done with this is from a school base, if the teachers come to their technology integration specialist and identify content-based applications that they want to use, the school's based personnel can actually push those out within minutes or within hours, depending on availability. And we just didn't have that type of flexibility. Differentiation, again, the ability to send out different resources through different playlists to students. And, many of our classes are co-taught, and we have a lot of inclusion classes. So there are kids in the class with very different needs, and kids sitting next to each other can have no idea what different resources or different assignments are being pushed out to them quickly through the use of the tablet. Student empowerment, as I said earlier, we really try to make sure that we include students in the decision-making in technology. As I said, they have a lot to say. We really wanted to always have a student-centered help desk, and with the laptops, there were more risk involved in having them man the student help desk and do a lot of the re-imaging that was necessary or setting up network accounts. With the tablets, there's not a lot of security issues to be concerned about, and the student support's really more about guiding students, helping them learn how to use their Google Drive or how to do different processes rather than major fixes and setting up. If a student needs a new tablet, we can re-provision it, or a student can re-provision it pretty quickly. And we have a lot of, as I said, we've a lot of ELL students, and we have been able to really build a more differentiated student help desk for our ELL students, and we're excited about that. partnership. Amplify has been, I will say, an incredible partner. I have been in my current position for over 6 years, and we've had a lot of good partners. However, when it comes to the Amplify Tablet system, they have been so dedicated not to getting only our feedback on the device itself, but they want to make sure that it's a powerful tool in the classroom. They are so invested in the success of our implementation, and it feels like a partner when we're doing focus groups, and we're getting ready to do another round of student and teacher focus groups next week. They're going to be on the ground with us listening, and there's nothing like having a partner that's actually on the ground listening to you and listening to your users so that they can understand the experience that they're providing. And finally, cost, price. I've mentioned budget and school board a couple of times. And, you know, it's all school boards and schools are facing, you know, decreasing budgets, and we're just constantly looking on ways to save and be more efficient, and we are saving over a couple $100,000 by moving from the tablets to the laptops. So I'm switching from the laptops to the Amplify Tablet system. I apologize. So those are some of the main topics that I talk about when I talk about, you know, why we've moved to Amplify. So I'm going to pass this on to Dan Foreman, who is my instructional technology coordinator, and he works with school-based technology integration specialist, and he has been in charge of all of the implementation details, and he's going to go into more detail.
Thank you, Dr. Hoover. All right. So the implementation details I'm going to go over, because this has been a very long process from switching from the laptops to getting into the tablets. And I'm going to work through what we did for teacher professional development, how we distributed our tablets and how that differed from the way that we ran that with the computers, how we're continuing our ongoing professional development, as well as the technical support we're providing for teachers and students. So starting off with professional development, this started very early on, that knowing that this was going to be a very big change in how the classroom is running and definitely impacting instruction. We knew that we needed to provide as much training as possible throughout the summer in getting teachers prepared for when they returned in August. So in the very beginning, there was a blended learning grant that was won by government teachers, and they had to have a certain percentage of their class run through blended learning. And knowing that we were moving into the Amplify system, that we wanted to provide these teachers early training so that they could spend their summers preparing their lesson plans and changing their classes from being laptop-based to being Amplify tablet-based. So that core group of about 6 teachers went first, and they received their 2 days of professional development during that time. Moving into early August, we have over 300 teachers at TC Williams, and having to train all of those teachers at once was going to be very difficult, and realizing that we needed to kind of split that group up, we decided to kind of hang a carrot out and say that we wanted to provide an early August option for anyone who is interested and willing to come in over the summer, and for that they would receive a $150 a day stipend, which is standard for those who are receiving training over the summer outside of their contract time, and those are all volunteers. So the caveat to that was that they would also be providing support during pre-service week when we were doing the major group of training of teachers. And also what we did was we partnered with Amplify, knowing that we were going to have a number of groups that we were going to have to be training in during pre-service. We had a train-the-trainer session, so that we're pulling teachers from the pilot that ran in June, and they were going to be training the same training that Amplify was providing for when we did the large group. So that moves us into late August. So 80 teachers decided to do the early August option, which was fantastic to have 80 teachers come in over the summer and give up their personal time to be willing to do that professional development. And then when we moved into late August, we had over 200 teachers, and we were running 10 concurrent sessions at once. Some were Amplify led, and the rest was held by my technology integration specialists, as well as those teachers who ran in the pilot. So that moves into high school tablet deployment. So we wanted to give a certain amount of time between when professional development happened and when we are actually handing out high school tablets. Previously, what's happened for the computer deployments is it's happened over 4 to 5 days. We take a very long, slow process to make sure that everything happens appropriately, and they're only getting a computer and a charger. Knowing that we had the tablet system and kind of looking at our entire process for how we did this large, massive deployment of 3,800 students, we decided to look at everything from A to Z and see where we could change and where we could improve. And we decided to really look at that entire process and change a lot of it. Some of it was due to space because we had now had more students than what we had previously had in the past, and because the process needed to be completely changed. So what we did in the past was, for computers, we would pre-provision every single computer, and the students would come down with their papers and they would receive their computer and their charger. And what we did for the tablets was we decided that we would pre-register every single tablet, because if we were to have students register those tablets in classes, then it was going to take twice as long. So what we did was pre-registered all 3,800 tablets and then handed them out in our auditorium in a continuous cycle. So what we would do is call down all students letter A, and we would line them up, and they would all have their paperwork with them, and they would come down and walk across the stage just like as if they were graduating and receive each piece of their system. So they would receive first their sleeve that held everything, their keyboard, their charger, and then finally their tablet. And from their tablet, they then went over and put it into their protective case. And from that point, they were finished, and they were able to go back to class. It took maybe about 5 to 10 minutes per student to actually go through that entire process, and we were able to cut down our time in half for tablet deployment so that students could have the tablets in hand for instructional use as quickly as possible. The other piece to this was previously, at a certain point, you have to do a cutoff in stating that all of our computers are registered, and if you are a brand new student, you will have to wait until after we hand out all of the computers before we can register you a new computer. With the tablets, we were able to register new students on the fly. As long as they had a schedule, we were able to get them a tablet that day, and that was able to be done for about 200 students, which previously they would have had to wait a week or more before they were able to receive their device. So ongoing high school student training and support. We all assume that students know how to use every single device and are able to use it very easily and quickly, and for the most part they are, but that is for a personal use. It is very different when you're asking them to use it in a classroom. So working with TC administration, we were able to secure student advisory classes. So they were already planning on doing this throughout the year by having a 20-minute advisory class added on to their first period classes. And through that process, I was able to work with my technology integration specialists to prepare lessons that were very simple and very easy to do for very basic lessons. How do you save work? How do you share work with your teachers? How do you organize your work within Google Drive? How do you request support from Amplify through the Amplify support app? And by doing that, we're able to create a baseline of knowledge across all of the students. And that is something that it's been a struggle previously, and we've really focused on for this so that we can make sure that all students are receiving the same lessons in every class. We also have a student help desk that is open for students from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that is where they can come and have in-person support from an actual person who's been trained on tablet systems, so that if it's broken or if it's missing or if they're just having a question about an app and how an app functions or how to best save their work, they can go and have that in-person support. Because we have such a large population of ELL students in TC Williams and within Alexandria in general, we knew that we had to differentiate the support for ELL students. Historically, it's been very difficult to do that because the student help desk has been more focused on repair of student laptops instead of how a student is using their device. So what we've been working with our International Academy to have students trained in their own language to help other students. So for example, currently we have two Spanish-speaking students, and one Arabic-speaking student who we are training to help and provide training to other students who have just arrived in this country. We're working on finding more students who are willing to help out with this so that we can have more languages covered for students who are first coming in. Because we have many students who this might be their first time within school and first time actually using any actual computing device. And there's a lot of information that they don't have that a lot of students who are born in America do, so that we can provide that kind of support. The other piece of this is the Amplify System support. So on the tablet itself, there is a support button, and it goes directly to Amplify, and students can press that button, report an issue, and it will go to an actual live person, as well as pull a log off of the tablet for what is actually happening. And I get a report on all of those every single day, and it also goes to my TISs as well, so that we can make sure that we are supporting our students and our teachers. The other piece is the online community for teachers, and this is for instructional support, as well as suggesting anything that you feel might need to be built or be missing from the system. Throughout the pilot, we saw that there were many teachers who were very active on the online community, and the things that they were suggesting and the things that they were asking was also worked on being built into the Amplify system. And within that online community, you're not only connected to other teachers within your school division, you're connected to other school divisions that are also using the Amplify system. So if you're an English teacher, you can also ask other English teachers who are using the system how they have taught a specific lesson. So then that moves us into the elementary school pilots. Because we have those 400 tablets from the original high school pilot, we wanted to do something very useful and very new with them. So what we decided to do was have elementary schools apply to have a pilot run in their school. We had 8 elementaries apply to be a part of this, and ultimately 3 were chosen based off of numbers as well as their application. So those teachers received the 2 full days of professional development, the same professional development that all teachers received at the high school, and then they also received 1/2 day of planning, and that I would have them sit with one of the TC technology integration specialists who had been working with it since January, so that they could ask all of those questions that they might have churning in their head, because they had never been in a one-to-one before. So 2 weeks after that professional development, we then deployed the student tablets. And as opposed to how we did it at the high school, where it was very factory style and moving them through as quickly as possible, we really took our time with the tablet distribution at the elementary schools. Every single student got a 90-minute in-person, in-class, hands-on training with the tablet, and also registered their tablets in class as opposed to having them pre-registered. At the elementary schools, we also held a lot of parent information sessions so that we could provide and answer any questions that parents had about how all of these systems would work and how their students would be able to use the device. Because in the elementary schools, historically, we have never allowed devices to go home with the student, and what we're working through now is a gradual release of responsibility. So right now they're staying in school, but teachers are now starting to push for the students to be able to bring them home, when originally, before we distributed them, they wanted to hold on to them in classes. But now they really want them to go home with students so that they can provide that kind of at-home support. The other piece to this is the Amplify Partnership. Throughout this entire process, we have had people from Amplify on the ground working alongside with us, and they've worked through us with the detailed project planning, having numerous conference calls to make sure that we are going through every single detail of every single piece. The first time I saw it, I had a huge Excel spreadsheet with all of these checkboxes with lots of different things on it, and it was overwhelming at first, but walking through it and realizing that they're very detail-oriented in how they are going to plan their projects and make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. The on-site support, we've had numerous people on the ground since the pilot and on through even our implementation plans. That includes trainers, product development, support, and development teams. The cross-collaboration with other school divisions, through the Amplify Tablet community, we're able to communicate with other school divisions as well as be in contact. We have been put in contact with other school divisions that are interested in the Amplify system, and we can talk about it because we have been working so deeply within it. We have regularly scheduled communication with the implementation teams for how we're going to implement the system, as well as we have weekly calls with the support team so that we can work through and troubleshoot any issues that we're seeing on the ground. The development teams and product development teams have also been on the ground to help us work and walk through our student roundtables and roundtable discussions to collect that student and teacher data on how they're using the tablets within the classroom. And most importantly, they're responsive to our ideas and suggestions. Anything that we suggest or any idea that we have, it's listened to and it's heard so that we could try and develop it and put it into the Amplify system moving forward and talk about this is what we need as a school system and this is what we need in the classroom. So, and that leads us into planning for success, and I will pass it back to Dr. Hoover.
Thanks, Dan. So we've spent some time, talking about at the end of the year, what would we like to be able to say about this first year with our tablet program? What are some things that are really important that we feel like have to be there for success use in the classroom? And the first thing is a reliable infrastructure, because if the infrastructure is not reliable, if the devices aren't working, and if our network's not providing access, then we're going to have a lot of frustration. So we are continuing to track data on student and teacher tablets across time. One thing that has been, I think, amazing is we have had devices in students' hands for 6 weeks, and we've had 2 tablets have broken screens. And one was, it shouldn't even count, it was a child that was having a lot of issues in the tablet was one of many things that had a rough day that day. And then the other was a teacher one that just happened to catch a corner of the desk at a very strange angle. I can tell you that 6 weeks into our laptop programs, we would have much more, we would have had many more issues as far as device durability. We have a content delivery server that tracks infrastructure data related to tablets as far as connectivity, play services, playlist builder connectivity, content caching, etc. And so we are looking at that. And then, of course, data on breakage and loss. So communication, we want to make sure that we are communicating about our tablet program well, that our not only our school administrators can talk about it, our teachers, but our community as well. Our professional development, we're really working to make sure that we are providing continuous professional development and support of differentiated professional development. Like all schools, we have teachers with different comfort levels when it comes to technology, and making sure that we are providing a lot of support for those that those teachers that want some additional help in hands-on in the classroom, as well as that we're really supporting our high flyers. And then making sure that our professional development is encouraging teachers to differentiate. The Amplify Tablet system has a lot of tools that enable easy differentiation and seamless differentiation that's really can go kind of unnoticed by the class as a whole, and to make sure that we are taking advantage of those tools. And then finally, that the whole experience is student-centered and that they have a voice. So we are doing our student focus groups, and we will have our student help desk. We're going to be looking at student projects and how our student projects may be different than they have been in the past. What is our usage on of our screen time for our students. That has been very difficult to track in the past with our laptop program, but we've got really more tools to be able to gather some hard data around at least our usage of our teachers and our students. And making sure, again, that our students, teacher, and administrators have the opportunity to provide feedback. So those are those 5 areas that we want to make sure that we have given the correct focus to throughout the year. So that wraps it up.
Well, Elizabeth and Dan and Rachel, thank you so much for sharing your insights to us today. You certainly packed an awful lot into 45 minutes. So it does leave us, though, with about 15 minutes remaining, and there are a lot of questions from the audience, so why don't we try to tackle as many as we can. The first one for maybe Elizabeth or Dan, how are parents engaged in the deployment of the tablet? And what are their responsibilities for helping the system work?
So that's a multiple-pronged thing. So at the high school, that looks very different because the high school, we have to make sure that the parents are signing off to make sure that it's okay for the students to receive their tablet. And that's kind of the extent of that. Yeah, working with PTAs, working with any kind of parents that have any questions about it. At the elementary school, it looks very different. It is more about, let's bring them in, let's talk to them about what's actually happening, mostly because they are receiving a Google account and they are receiving an account within the Google domain. Because they're under 13, they have to fall within a walled garden. There's a lot of parent communication that needs to happen within that system so that parents know exactly what it is that their students are receiving and what the capabilities of it are. So, and that's kind of where the parents fall within all of that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that answer. Elizabeth, maybe this next question is maybe best directed to you, but tell me otherwise if it's not. One of the attendees said that she would like to purchase a bunch of Amplify tablets and then share them across the classroom. Is there a limit to the number of users that can use each device, and what is the cost of the tablet?
I'll actually take that one, Elizabeth.
Rachel.
Yeah. So actually, that question is quite timely because we are just developing and offering a multi-user option. So where, we know that going fully one-to-one, some districts are not ready for that, so we want to be able to offer kind of a stepping stone to that. So you can buy the Amplify tablet at $299 per device, and then you purchase implementation and ongoing support at $20 a device. So your total for 1 year is $319 plus $10 a user. So we are very soon we're starting that multi-user kind of environment. Okay. Hope that helps answer that question.
No, that's terrific. And Rachel, just to follow up straight with you on something that's related, does the device come with an initial warranty?
Yep, good question. So it does. It's got a 12-month warranty. I know that a lot of districts have gone ahead and purchased insurance just to kind of cover kind of everything that students and teachers may do. So I know that a lot of districts are purchasing additional insurance on that.
Okay. And so let's move back now to Elizabeth and Dan. One of the questions is that since you're using Google Drive, how would you compare the Amplify tablet interface with a Chromebook, other than the fact that it's a tablet?
I can answer that one. For Chromebooks versus Amplify, so with a Chromebook, you kind of have limited capacity for in-class sharing and in-class control using the Amplify teacher tools. Whereas for the tablet, what you can do is you can very quickly say eyes on teacher, and it locks every single tablet within the room. And then you're now affecting the process of instruction. I can also quickly push things out to the student tablets and saying, like, go to this link, and that can be very quickly differentiated in saying, I have this worksheet that I want these 5 students to work on. I have this worksheet that I want this other group of other 5 students to work on. But on the student end, all they see is one worksheet, but they don't realize that they're receiving 2 different pieces. The other piece is the apps. There's a lot of apps that can be used and how we can deploy them very quickly for the Amplify system. So, for example, if a teacher wants to use an app saying that I'm a science teacher, I want to use this science app, through the mobile device manager, we can very quickly turn that app on, quote unquote, and enable the students to download that app themselves. and that enables us to have that also differentiated piece. So, for example, now the tablet is more connected to the student and how they can have a very different tablet with very different apps depending on their schedule and depending on what their teachers require of them.
Yeah, and I think I would just add to that. I think it's the whole syncing with our student information system that is really makes the management of instructional management and the device management so easy for the Amplify tablet system.
Okay. Well, the last question referenced Google, and Rachel, there's another question from the audience that makes reference to Google Apps. And that is how does the Amplify Tablet system integrate or work with the Google Apps for Education environment?
So in terms of, since it is an Android device, you're using all of the Google Suite. I hope I'm answering that question in the way that she was, but you've got automatically loaded, obviously, Google Drive and all of the Google Suite.
Okay.
Yeah, this has really moved us to Google. Moving into Amplify has moved us into the whole Google Suite.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. And then, Rachel, there was some mention during the presentation about the $55 worth of free apps. One of the attendees wanted to know that, aside from that, once you purchase apps, is it a one-time purchase or is it a recurring cost?
So if I understand the question, I think the question is, do you have to pay for those $55 worth of apps? And actually, no, there's no charge for the apps. Actually, I think I mentioned that we worked with Common Sense Media. If you all are familiar with Common Sense Media, they're a great tool. I even use it for to make sure that my own 3 children are watching the appropriate things, they're listening to the appropriate music, so they vet their kind of student appropriateness for videos and apps and games and music. So we worked with Common Sense Media and looked at all of kind of the top most commonly used apps in education, and we actually worked with each of those app developers and purchase kind of bulk licensing for those apps. We created this Amplify market, took those 100 apps, put them in our Amplify market, and then delivered those to our customers for free. So if you think about the cost savings there, it's actually $55 per student that you're saving. If you were to obviously go to the Google App Store, or if you're using, anything else like iPads, you'd be going to the Apple App Store, that would cost you $55. Now, if the question is the cost of our device, I guess I can, if that's the question, I do want to answer that. It's $359 to purchase the device, and then $60 per year in years 2 and 3, or you can lease the device for $160 per year per device, and that covers the content and the device and the software. So hopefully I answered that question.
All right, I think you did. Thank you very much. Let's turn back right now to Elizabeth and Dan. There was, in one of the photos in your presentation, there's a photo of a teacher with a laptop. And someone wanted to know, do teachers require laptops for this, or because their standard classrooms are teacher desktops?
No, they don't need it. We decided all of our teachers across the division have a laptop issued to them, and we kept that through this. One of it is the grading system. I mean, for our teachers to do their grade book, we just really thought it was much easier for them to do it on the laptop and to have the same device that all the other teachers in the school division have as well. But it doesn't have to be a laptop. I mean, that was just our decision to keep it uniform across the division.
Yeah, like the best way to think of it is what we do is provide the teachers with a computer of some form, and that's for planning, for administrative duties and all of that. The tablet that they use is for instruction, and that's for that in-classroom environment and how they are affecting the in-class environment.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Dan, let's stick with you. In your presentation, you made reference to a robust network. And one of the attendees wanted to know exactly what you mean about a robust network and the kind of requirements on the back end.
Well, actually, I'll take that one. This is Elizabeth.
Okay.
Well, we we have an access point in every classroom. We have over 300 megabits of bandwidth. We have part of that support. I would say network infrastructure is people on the ground. We have 2 techs in our building. Of course, we've got 2,800 students in one of our buildings. So you just need to make sure you have the right number of IP addresses, you have the correct bandwidth, you have the correct access points to support this. And again, it doesn't, whether it's tablets or any device, you just need to make sure it's scaled up to actually support what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And if you're instructional, making sure that you're really working with your IT group to talk about, talk about what's needed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, let's stay with you, Elizabeth, for a second. And you talked about during the 6 weeks of the implementation that there had been 2 incidents with the tablets. And how do you handle insurance for damage? Are you self-insured, or do the families pay into it?
Actually, no, and we did do additional insurance, and we were actually thrilled. We worked with our insurance company that insures all of ACPS, and we are only paying about $3,500 a year to insure all of our laptops, and now that includes accidental insurance as well. So we generally, take care of it. In the past, we have charged if it's repetitive, about $60, I think is what we were charged in the past. But and then if it's lost or stolen, we have a police report, and we go through that process for the insurance. But again, we've been really pleased with our break loss damage issues. And again, the MDM is so nice. So if it is lost, it can be easily found, whether it's in the school or across the city.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let me turn back to Rachel. We've got a few minutes left. Rachel, one of the attendees wants to know about whether the tablets and the whole system work with smart boards.
So you can connect. You're going to be able to display on a smart board. You're going to lose annotation because the smart notebook software is not loaded on the tablet. You're going to lose that annotation, but you certainly can either hardwire, like through a VGA, because we've got all of the ports required, hardwire it, into the smart board, into the projector, I should say, or you can certainly use Miracast or Chromecast to do it wirelessly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Dan, just listening to your presentation, you were talking about some of the apps and how they're being used in the classrooms. What are the most common kinds of learning software and apps the teachers are using on the tablet?
Currently, very widely, we're using Google Drive, and that's been a big switch from going from a Microsoft Office-based environment to a Google Drive environment. That's like the big number one. A few of the other ones is, instead of using Microsoft Word to push out any type of student work, it is better to have teachers push out Adobe PDFs so that students can then annotate and write directly on the Adobe PDF and then send that back through the Amplify system as an assignment. A few others is Linsu Create is an app that is used to kind of create like whiteboarding lessons, very similar to what you would see on like Khan Academy, but not quite as robust. But you're able to do that directly on the tablet. Another one is like using Sketch so that students can go and take pictures around the building and being able to write on top of those types of pictures and creating those types of multimedia presentations. Those are the first ones that I think off the top of my head, and I'm trying to pull up my list so I can get a better list. We currently have 255 approved apps that everybody's using. Wolfram Alpha, another one called Story Maker to be able to create stories, and Duolingo for our multilingual students. Okay.
All right, well, we have probably time for one more question, and I'm going to direct it to Elizabeth. How have you talked a bit about rolling it out to the elementary level. How have the implementations differed between the high school and the elementary level?
Yeah, so because our high school is so large, when we talked about distributing tablets, it had to be done much different way than it could be done in our elementary schools, which was really more hands-on with the teacher. Our technology integration specialists were shoulder to shoulder with the teacher during those training sessions, and we really got a lot more face time and could make sure that every student was receiving the robust amount of instruction. And, our elementary kids are different than our high school kids. I mean, our high school kids were very polite, but our elementary students, when we were distributing these, were saying, this is the best day of my life, and they're enthusiastic. They show their enthusiasm differently than they do the high school kids. I'll also say the teacher, working with the teachers is different, because we're talking about working with a fifth grade team of, a team of 5 teachers. So you can get into much more in-depth conversations and during that professional development and kind of teacher planning. And we've got our 3 elementary schools, and each of those schools are already planning on doing cross-division co-planning with each other, to sharing playlists and resources and kind of what's working well with the tablets. So I think we're able to do a more hands-on approach than we can in the high school.
All right, terrific. Well, that is all the time that we have left today. Dan, if you would just forward us to the final slide, we'll wrap up here.
Okay.
Let me just remind everyone, if you asked a question that we did not get to, and there were an awful lot of questions, and I apologize that we did not get to all of them, but one of the Amplify team will follow up with you individually to answer it. So don't worry about that, and thank you for all the questions that you sent in. You can also send an email to the address on the screen or visit the website for more information. And then finally, I want to thank Rachel, Elizabeth, and Dan for their excellent presentations, and also to thank Amplify for its support. And one final reminder, we will send out an email to all attendees when the recording of the webinar is ready. So thank you, and this concludes today's webcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.